get in and visit your branches in person at minimum once a week. If
Mm.
you're not doing that, they're going to forget about you. If you're not in front of their face, don't expect a lead from them.
Hey everybody, James Shepard here with another episode of the Merchant Sales Podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to all these episodes. I really appreciate that. Today I'm interviewing Dylan Gaines. Dylan has probably sold more individual merchant accounts through bank referral relationships and other referral partners than anyone with whom I've ever spoken in the industry. Thousands of merchant accounts that he's personally sold through bank relationships. And so we're talking about the importance of being able to build referral networks, how to find the right type of referral partners, how to make sure that those partnerships activate. And also we get into a really interesting concept around Dylan Gaines' mom, Joyce Gaines, who is a legend in the business and has built up some huge businesses in the industry. And so we talk about female entrepreneurship as well. So just a lot of really cool topics today. We go from that, of course, to Rich Norton, who presents some of his sales tips as well for the field, which I think is really exciting. And then we ended with Patty Murphy and her Insiders Report, where we discuss what Visa has in store for us in terms of instant payments. So we talk about Visa Direct, which has been around for a while, and MasterCard has a program as well that competes with this. But we talk about the impact of what's coming out now, what's being rolled out, and how that's going to impact P2P and other forms of payment, as well as, of course, things like merchant deposits and other types of payments where real time is going to matter. This episode is brought to you by Nativia. You can head over to nativia.com/CC Sales Pro, nativia.com/CC Sales Pro to learn more about the exciting programs that Nativia has to offer. Really looking forward to this episode. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, I'm here with Dylan Gaines, the president at International Payment Solutions. How you doing today, Dylan?
Not too bad. Not too bad. James, thanks for having me on the show, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely excited to have you. So we've been doing this kind of mini series off and on. We come and go a little bit, but we're talking to people that have just sold a lot of merchant accounts, right? And this is the Merchant Sales
Sure.
Podcast. So let's talk about how to do that, right? So I know you've
Yeah.
got quite a few merchant accounts under your belt, which we're going to get to. But before that, give us a little bit of your story. How did you end up in this crazy industry, and kind of what led you to what you're doing today?
Great question. So my brother and I are both the co-founders and owners, and we started our career off. Our mom, Joyce Gaines, founded UMS Banking, which then sold and is now Solero.
Oh,
She
sure.
built that company for 35 years, and
Wow.
my brother and I both kind of swore we'd never work for our moms, and I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, and he was going to be a professional motorcycle racer.
Right.
And, we chased after those dreams for a minute or two, and then, went into the working world. And she was going after banks and financial institutions as referral relationships.
Right.
And at that moment, she had CalFed Bank, which got bought out by Citibank. And then UMS stayed on as the sales team for Citibank. So we went from servicing like 100 local branches in California to like 2,000 branches overnight.
Yeah.
So she called both of us and was like, listen, I know you don't want to work for me, but just give me 2 weeks so that I can hire some other people. And that
Right.
was 23 years ago. So
Oh, wow. That's so crazy.
yeah, we got roped
That's
in, but it was
interesting.
a family business through and through up until the point she sold the company. And she instilled a lot of the culture of IPS as well, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, okay, so we have to go back in time just a little bit because I'm actually
Yeah.
really impressed by this idea that your mom, at a time when female entrepreneurship wasn't as popular as it is today, wasn't as accepted. I mean, she was breaking
Oh,
through some barriers. Talk about that growing up in that environment a little bit. I'm very
big
curious about the
time.
story, right?
That's a fantastic. So no, my mom's always had that entrepreneur spirit. Before that, she was selling blue jeans on the street corners in the weekends in like Compton and South Central.
Wow.
She got into the payment processing business because she was going door to door selling the very first credit card terminals, which were the Zon Junior XLs. You're
Yes.
too young to remember the Zon
I
Junior
don't
XL.
remember them, but I'm very familiar. I have a lot of friends in the industry that, started out selling that. And yeah, that's
Yep.
so cool.
So that's
Yeah.
the dinosaur of the era. And then she realized, oh, well, I should also set up merchant accounts for them and this and that, and then kind of got into the
Right.
business. But yeah, no, it was interesting. Like we'd go to Money 2020, we go to a what is it? Uh,
ETA.
Thank ETA, that's the word. Yeah,
Yeah.
ETA, right? All these
Right.
different conferences. And it was like my mom was one of like three women in the room.
Right.
What's interesting now is like when I go to these conferences, anytime I mention Joyce Gaines, they're like, oh my God, Joyce Gaines? Like
Right.
yeah, she's like a legend in the payment space.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you came back, you and your brother, kind of get voluntold that you're going to do this, right? So
Yep.
you jump
Yep.
in and you're, I guess, at that point selling merchants over the phone from these bank referral relationships. Is that right?
So actually I had 25 bank branches that I was in charge of.
Okay.
They were all Citibank branches.
Right.
And so I would drive into the banks. I would sit down with the business banking officers and I'd say, hey, what business accounts have you opened up recently? Why don't we reach out to them and offer them merchant services? Hey,
Mm,
why don't we look through your ACH logs and see if you can see deposits coming in from like Wells Fargo Merchant Services or B of A Merchant Services? Let's reach out to these guys and let's start making it. And so I took an area from Hollywood, North Hollywood, downtown LA that were considered like dog branches. They don't send any referrals and revolutionized them. And they became like the top
mm.
producing bank branches in my area.
What have you learned about, because I know a big part, we'll get to a big part of what you do even today is these referral relationships. And
Oh, big time.
a lot of people really struggle with this. So you mentioned kind of going in person, you're sitting down, like how are you really activating them? And because I know this is a big challenge. A lot of times we get these referral relationships, they have hundreds and hundreds of connections and we get nothing out of it. What are you doing to
Uh,
kind of ensure success and take control over this model that for a lot of people feels a little bit outside their control?
it's a great question. First of all, if they're an in-person referral relationship, take them out to lunch.
Hmm.
Get to really build a friendship with these people.
Yeah.
That always goes a long, long way. My mom always said people buy you first,
Right.
right? And then
Right.
they buy product and they buy price and everything else. So if they really enjoy working with you and being around you, they get to know you, get to trust you, get to like you, they're gonna go out of their way to make those connections. The second thing, and honestly, I struggle a little bit in this because when you get to managing so many different referral relationships, sometimes you kind of stay out of communication. But my
Right.
mom said something which was very interesting, which is if you're not in front of their face, don't expect a lead from them.
Yeah.
So you can take them out to lunch, they can get all excited, but then you got to continue the follow-up.
Right.
Hey, you mentioned about that hardware store down the street, you did business with them.
Right.
Any chance we can get a connection in this week? And
Right.
and you it's the constant thing. And actually what we're starting to implement now is automation in this.
Of
Because
course.
if you've got 120 referral relationships, unless you have somebody who's on the phone, and the thing is they want to talk to you, right? So
Right.
you can try to hand them off to somebody unless they're really charming and they're like, no, I want to talk to Dylan. Well, I can only pick up the phone so many times. So
Right. Right.
having it feel like it's authentic but automate it a little bit
Right.
is going to keep that continuous. So it's constant communication, constant contact. My mom used to say, get in and visit your branches in person at minimum once a week. If
Hmm.
you're not doing that, they're going to forget about you. They're
Right.
going to go off and do what they're focused on, and they're not going to pay attention to
Right.
you. You're not going to get leads. So it's
Right.
that constant reminder that you're there for them, that
Right.
you're going to take care of their clients. And then
Hmm.
the other thing I used to do too is actually what some of the things my mom did was really celebrate the wins. So if
Hmm.
they refer you a deal,
Yep.
you close that deal, they're going to get make a huge deal about it. You
Right.
know, send them a goodie basket to their office that everybody can see. Oh my
Right.
God, where did you get this
Right.
goodie? Oh, Dylan Gaines, IPS. Yeah, he's amazing.
Right.
Get him, keep that. I think where people get lost, and I do too. I'm not perfect at this. I get them very, very excited, and
Right.
then there's just like nothing.
Right.
You got to keep excitement.
Yeah, I love it.
That'll help for sure.
Okay, so I want to dig in more to the referral thing, but before I do that, let's back up for a
Yeah,
minute and finish up this story. So,
please.
okay, 23 years ago, you get into this. What
Yeah,
happened between then and now, and kind of what's the structure of your setup now versus then?
yeah.
I'm assuming some things changed over the last two
Oh,
decades.
what? Never. No, it's all stayed the same. I was an employee at UMS. My brother was an employee at UMS. I was the VP of business development and sales over this area. I started getting other banking connections, other banks that outside of my mom's. My mom she was one of the first global payments ISOs. She was actually
Okay.
the third global payment ISO back
Wow.
when it was HSBC.
Right.
Then we got TSYS, FNBO, First National Bank of Omaha, and then
Right.
we got MES and Synovus. So we had three different bins. But then outside of that, I started just making my own contacts and connections with other banks
Right.
and financial institutions. Wood Forest was a big one, Esquire.
Mm.
And then I started going after different vertical markets, right? And one of the
Mhm.
markets that I went after was marketing and digital marketing and social media marketers
Right.
and online marketers.
Right.
And they started bringing accounts that were, scaling like massively, and then they would get shut down in 45 days,
Yes.
or
Yep.
chargebacks were out of control. And my mom was like, I don't want these deals. And then
Right.
she started seeing other deals coming in that were kind of like that. She didn't really want to be in the high risk space. So I started reaching out to some of these other banks and I was saying, hey, do you guys want any of these deals? And they're like, yeah, we'll take them. And that's kind of how International Payment Solutions got founded on, was those high risk deals that my mom's company didn't want to take, was
Right.
like, I'm not taking this. And I said, hey, why don't I take these deals that you don't want and find them a home?
Right.
And then I started going to other ISOs. Hey,
Right.
do you guys have deals that you want that you don't take, that if I could find a home, we could share the revenue?
Right.
Sure, sounds great. And they started sending me deals. And that's literally how it was
Hmm.
born. It was like my brother and I became known as like the guys who could get things done in that space. And
Right.
and the other
Interesting.
thing that we really did was educated the people, right? So these guys would get shut down and they're like, why am I getting shut down? What's happening?
Hmm.
Why doesn't the bank like me? Why is it bad that I went from zero to $1 million in month one? Well, let me explain this to you. And I
Right.
had to really educate a lot of these guys. And then once
Right.
I educated them, they were like, dude, I'm never leaving you. You're amazing.
Right.
Can I tell you about my friend? And just kind
Right.
of went,
That's so interesting. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about how do we get more referral relationships, more partners. You already alluded to one important thing, I think, which is providing a great experience for the ones you have because word spreads, right?
yes,
So let's talk about
absolutely.
that, right? Right. But then also, what about beyond that? When you just kind of wake
Yeah.
up and of course now you probably don't do this as much as you used to, but back in the day when you would wake up and say, I need to get another referral partner, what do you do?
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic question. I think you have to kind of look at what niche are you really good at,
Hmm.
right? Is it, I talked to one ISO and he's like, man, I kill it in car dealerships. I know how to get in there and really understand what the car dealerships need. And we've got software that integrates to all this stuff in the car dealership space and blah, blah. So I'd go, great. Who services car dealerships? Who goes in there? Oh, maybe it's the people who go in and service the cars or wash the cars or do marketing for car dealerships. Any person that touches a company,
Hmm.
and I would reach out to them and say, hey, we are the premier car wash payment processor. You work with a lot of car washes, don't you? Or car dealerships, right? Yeah, yeah, I do. Could we grab lunch? Or I'd love to just show you why we're so good. And I think we could provide this extra value and benefit to what you're already doing with the car dealerships. Just bring us in, and you're going to look like a hero because you're going to save them money. You're going to do this, and you're going to get residual income. Would you be interested? So I
Hmm.
think it's finding who in whatever space, right? So if it's you want to get in the e-commerce space, go look up web designers. Go look up web developers.
Right.
People that are going to build a website. Guess what? James, I hire you to build my website. The next thing out of your mouth is going to be like, hey, Dylan, you're going to need a merchant account.
Right.
Go talk to this person.
Right.
Right. So you're a perfect referral relationship if that's the space I want to get into. If I want to be in the e-commerce space, I'm going to find marketers, I'm going to find web developers. Those are the people that are talking to on an almost daily basis
Hmm.
with these business owners that I want to communicate to.
Right. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk technology for a minute. So
Yeah.
you are bringing in all of these different merchants from different referral relationships. One of the big challenges I find in that model is that you tend to kind of lose a little bit of control in terms of, well, what type of a merchant account am I going to get? Because I'm not necessarily targeting them per se. Maybe I'm targeting certain referral partners, but I'm going to get all these different people in. How do you handle, do you have some kind of, these are the technology vendors that you like the best gateway, the best virtual terminal, whatever it is.
Yep.
And also, how do you deal with this variation? Do you just kind of say, well, this account got sent to me, I guess I'm going to board it and try to give them a great experience? Or do you say, no, I can still be picky and have my criteria?
Fantastic question. Right now, NMI for me is like the gateway.
Got it.
Authorized net is definitely still out there. It's just limited in its functionalities.
Yeah.
You can only
Yeah.
put one merchant account in. You can't load multiple merchant accounts. There are certain gateways that authorized net isn't tied into. All of these different things. So NMI is kind of on the forefront of technology. I also like the fraud tools that are in NMI a lot
Mm,
better than I like the fraud tools in authorized net.
yeah.
But to go back to your question about if I get an account that I can't necessarily board on a certain gateway or this or that, I try to figure out a way to tie in, right? So we found different softwares to tie into QuickBooks, even QuickBooks invoicing, right? Which is a
Right.
big one. It's very
Right.
difficult to break into. Um, we have a first data processor so we can get into Clover. We've partnered with some other softwares companies that can get into Dentrix. So we try to just figure
Mm,
out how we can service the most people. And if there's enough of that business out there, we try to go out and research. We have someone on our team that's like special projects,
right.
and all they
Right.
do is they research, how can I tie into these different systems? How can I take what this
Mm,
person's doing and have them continue it?
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you have the NMI gateway, and then you're just kind of piecing these other ones together as needed as they come in. Hey, we have a new referral partner. Seems like they're going to send us a bunch of e-commerce merchants that are doing,
Yep.
shopping cart, and they want something that handles, shopping cart abandonment and things like that. So you find a new player, right, and make sure you can tie in the payments, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Are you
Yep.
trying to, I know NMI is processor agnostic to a certain extent. Of course, they have their own payment processing as well, but are you
Yeah.
typically looking for those processor agnostic solutions where you can still kind of keep all of your processing in one place, or are you moving around a bit more?
I'm definitely going the processor agnostic route
Okay,
for sure.
got it.
We eventually would like to build our own SaaS product that's only ties into us,
Right.
which is
Of
kind of
course.
like, the Shopify model, right?
Right. Of course.
But yeah, for now we're definitely more looking for the agnostic.
All right, so let's take a pause here and let's share a few stats. So you kind of talked a little bit about this operation that you have. Do you mind sharing any stats in terms of just kind of like how many merchant accounts you've personally boarded, or kind of, I don't know, whatever stats you have, or how many you currently do, or anything like that, just to kind of, I think it's interesting for our audience to understand a little bit more of the scope of what you're doing.
Um, right now I'd say we have about 120 referral partners.
Wow, that's great.
And it's the only way we've ever promoted to board merchants. I think we have about 17, maybe we're over 1,800 merchants now. Last year we almost hit 1 billion. We were like 947
Yeah,
million or something. Like we were
right, right.
just under that
Right
billion.
there. That's
Yeah.
great, man. That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah. This year is actually our first down year. So we're not going to hit 1 billion this year, but by next year we'll be well over that.
Yeah.
There was a few e-commerce merchants. There was a large group of e-commerce merchants that we boarded that got into some trouble. created
Sure.
some losses and et cetera, et cetera. So we took a decent hit this year, but
Right.
we're nowhere
Right.
down for the count. It's
Of
just
course, of course. So I
yeah.
know that you obviously have sold a lot of merchants personally. Are you still kind of in that game, or is it most of your time now developing the referral relationships? Like, give us a little context of kind of how you structure your team.
Man, right now, I just hired a new person to go out and find referral relationships. She's been killing it. We've been sending her to different mastermind groups,
Sure.
creating partnerships within the mastermind groups. I still do handle and look for and go after like our more VIP relationships.
Right.
And I manage those guys, and I still do the sales for them. Right. They're really kind of like, look, if I'm gonna hand anybody off, it's gonna be to you. Right. So I'm a little
Right.
stuck in the sales game, which I love, by the way. I
Right.
actually love
Right.
doing sales. I love it.
Yeah.
So most of my time is managing the more VIP guys, the ones that are
Right.
sending in the most amount of referrals. And then we've hired now somebody who's kind of replaced me, who's apprentice under me, who's going out and finding more referral relationships, and
Mm.
she's also doing sales. Then we have one other sales rep, and then we have a few other just independent agents that'll just send us deals and stuff
Mm.
like that. So that's
I love
kind
it.
of our
I love it.
structure.
Couple of questions for you. How do you see, there's really no secret here that, vertical specific solutions are gaining a lot of traction, right? We're seeing certain verticals, you look at veterinarian or dentists or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Where, this very, very, very specific, even Clover being too generalistic, right? It's like, no, we need like this
Yes.
deep integration into like inventory or whatever it is,
Oh,
right?
big
So
time.
when you have referral partners like you do, 120, different referral partners out there,
Yeah.
not being able to be quite as choosy in terms of maybe targeting certain verticals, how are you currently handling, the needs of the merchant along vertical specific software solutions? And how do you see that playing out over the next few years as the demand from these merchants for really, really, really specific features where you have to have that software integration? How do you see that playing out?
Man, I'll tell you, I think more and more these software companies are getting smart to the game, and they're
Yes,
realizing that there's money in payment processing.
for sure.
So it's gonna push some of us out. I'm actually developing a software that's specifically for a vertical that would push everybody else out as well. So,
Right, right.
you can't beat them, join them, right?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
It really is going in that direction, though. I think merchant accounts alone as that singular service and commodity are really diminishing in value. It's hard to just go out and just
Right,
sell a business owner on just their merchant service fees, right?
right.
I think you have to have more products. I think you have to bring on
Yeah,
additional things. We started getting into business lending and loans and
sure,
business loans and
sure.
and consumer financing. And then we have a software that's in development for a vertical group that I think is going to
Hmm,
be a big splash, and it's going to be a big focus on going direct to merchants.
hmm.
So,
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, I love it.
yeah,
Okay,
great question.
couple other questions here for you.
Please.
What about differential pricing? What are your thoughts there? Do you offer dual pricing, surcharging, cash discounting? Do you do any of that? I know that can also be tricky with referral partners because sometimes the banks are like, "Oh, I don't want that." What are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
I have traditionally kind of stayed away from dual pricing, surcharging, and cash discounts.
Okay.
Um, Not that it can't work. I've
Right.
seen some payment processors that just crushed it.
Right.
I just never, I think I just had a hard time. I ran into a lot of business owners that were like, I don't know that I want to pass those fees on to my customers.
Right.
I think it's going to upset my customers. I don't know that it's a good idea.
Right.
And again, think about in the e-commerce space, right? So like I deal with business coaches,
Right.
right? And
Right.
their packages are 5, 10, $15,000
Right. It's not going to be a good fit.
for them to charge me 15 grand and then say, oh, do you mind eating the 3.5% fee?
Right.
Seems like super cheesy, right? It's kind of like, dude,
Yeah.
you're charging me this much and now you're asking for the fees.
Right.
So it has to make sense. I know a lot of
Yeah.
restaurants are doing it,
Right.
um, but I don't really play in the restaurant space.
Right. Well,
Don't
you're
play.
more in that card not present e-commerce where cash
Yeah,
isn't even an option. So then it becomes, is ACH an option? Is it like card or ACH?
sure,
But then again,
sure.
when you get, what I found in my experience, Dylan, is I've seen something about that $500 average ticket. Like when you start to get above that, then what happens is you literally start to change consumer behavior.
You do.
And now you have a problem because number one, you created a bad experience because they changed their behavior. So they
Yeah,
noticed and said no, right? And then also you changed their behavior. So you didn't get the card processing because they wrote a check or they used cash or
yeah.
whatever. And so yeah, I think 500 and above, I found that there's kind of a no man's land there where the thing that they tend to care more about, those merchants care more about getting the sale. So they want, like you mentioned, consumer financing, right? They want to make sure that they just get the money. They're fine with eating the fee. I just want to get paid, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And I think a lot of, I'm a part of a couple different mastermind groups, and what I hear a lot of people who really want to build a business is creating the consumer experience is
Yeah.
everything. If
Yes.
they have a good experience, they will be a lifelong customer. If you try to get in there and jab them here and cut and
Right.
let me grab and let me upsell you this and oh, and we've got a subscription to a magazine now, and and they're
Right.
they're just turned off,
Yeah.
and that upfront get that sale, that mindset changes. And then when you try to talk about surcharging your customers, it's going to leave that sort of that business owner's going to go, I don't know that I want to do that.
Right.
So in my realm, it's been difficult. Have I done it? Yes. I've done a couple dual pricing with ACH
Right.
where they offer a discount if you
Right.
use ACH, or they add the credit card fee on top,
Yeah.
but it's been quite minimal, I would
Yeah.
say.
I think it'd be really interesting in some of those verticals, when the pay by bank stuff really, really starts to take off over the next hopefully 36 months, where like I'm thinking of like there's an ISV I work with that does like HVAC and that kind of thing, right? So
Sure.
they have that struggle where average ticket sizes are above $1,000, and we
Uh-huh.
tried dual pricing with ACH and card, but again we changed consumer behavior a little bit. It was a little frustrating, and the issue was people don't like paying by ACH. They don't like having to type out the bank account and routing number. It's a negative
They really
feeling,
don't.
you know.
They really don't.
But I think if they could just
No,
tap their phone or somehow there was a way to just very easily pay by Plaid or something, I don't know. We need a change there of the pay by bank. I think we could really see some
do you
improvement.
guys have a solution for consumer financing for them?
Yeah, right. So, what is the name? There's a company that we've worked with quite a bit. Now I'm drawing a blank on the name. We had them on the podcast recently. But yeah, who do you use on the consumer financing side? That's a good question to share with the audience if you don't mind.
TRX.
TRX. Okay, yeah, I've heard of them. Okay, very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to think of that name now.
And
Put it in there.
I've started going after referral partners in the veterinarian, in the dental, in the medical spa, the med spas,
Yep.
right? Because the med spas, treatments, you buy a package of treatments, $1,500, $2,000.
Right.
But yeah, HVAC, plumbers, electricians, anything that's like a couple $1,000.
Right.
Um, they're like, oh man, I'll do it next month when I have the money. And if you can just
Right.
go, tell you what, here, I'm going to send you a text right now. Click this. We'll have you approved in 20 seconds.
Right.
The merchant, meaning the HVAC company,
Right.
gets funded next day.
Right.
It's a beautiful product, and they very carefully looked at the competitors out there and said, we want to do better, cheaper, faster, and they
Hmm.
did, and it's pretty
Yeah.
sweet.
All right, last
So,
question for you.
well,
So,
here,
as
it.
you look at your upstream partners, okay,
Yes,
how do you evaluate, when there's a lot of people listening right now who are, VP of sales or whatever for these bigger companies, right? And
sure.
they listen to a podcast like this and salivate and they're like, "Oh man, I need to get Dylan to be boarding his accounts with us," right? What does someone like you look for in an upstream partnership? What's really important to you?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I think for me, it really comes down to how how willing is that partner to to push for my deals to get approved.
Right, because you're doing more
Right.
of the medium to high risk deals as well. So,
Yes.
mm,
And I sit there and I bang my head and I struggle with the banks, and they're like, no, we don't like this deal. And I'm like, how can you not like this deal? Come
right,
on, and
right,
and it drives me out of my mind. So for me, it's really understanding the relationship I have with some of these bigger, larger clients that are going to be in an industry that may be high risk, but the guys had years of processing, millions in the bank, all of
right.
these things. And so the thing that I look for is like, are you going to be willing to work with me? And most of my upstream partners, we take 100% liability or 50 or 70% liability. So it's not like we're just
Right,
asking for handouts. Our money is on the line.
right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And so that's really what I look for. So if
Mm.
someone's willing to, I one of my partners right now that I work with, the CEO came and took me out to dinner, and he's like, I'm in the approval business. And I was like, I like that, man. He goes,
Yeah,
I will do what I can to get accounts approved. And he stayed good to his word. Of recent times, they've expanded very much rapidly, and it's been a little more challenging. So I'm not going to say the name of the
right,
partner.
right.
Anyways,
Yeah, no, I know
yeah,
what
that's
you mean,
what.
and I feel like the banks a lot of times the thing that's frustrating is
Oh,
you want to say like there's a way to make this deal work. So just tell me what I need to
yes,
do, right? Like it's like
yes,
why would you say no? Just why don't it's like it should be a negotiation. It's like, okay, I want to
yes,
get this deal approved, but you
yes.
probably want something. What do you want? Do you want a reserve? Do you want
Right,
12 months of bank
right.
statements? Like what do you
Yeah.
want? And let me go
Oh
see if I
yeah,
can get that done, but instead it's like no. And then you're like, well, no for what?
yeah.
What do I need to
Right,
send back to get this done? Right? It's very frustrating. I agree with you on
bro. It's like the bane of my existence. It's like,
that.
and I'm in there like I've got like pie charts and flow. I've got like
Right, right,
all of this stuff, and I'm like, why are you? Well, that industry, and I'm like, stop.
right,
Just
right,
stop. Look at this file. Don't look at this equals this equals this equals this and be a robot. Like
right. They
be a
have all the
real human
policies
being.
and right, and it's like, yeah, you're
Oh,
just yeah, and there's just
completely.
so much money left on the table. And then you
Ah,
even see things done where banks will kind of shut down like an entire kind of segment of the portfolio. And I think it's interesting because the sponsor banks, when you really come down to it, one of the big issues I believe is the business model that's built for today. The sponsor banks just don't have very much skin in the game, and so it's almost like
no, they do not.
they don't want the aggravation. I almost feel like
Sure.
in some cases I feel like they should take more and you know what I mean?
And
And say,
as a smart business person, I'll give 20% of the revenue away.
right,
Um, I, well, I guess I can probably mention. So Esquire Bank has done that with me and it was actually a merchant that was put on match twice and was on the program, the visa monitoring program, 13 months, and they kept
wow,
their account.
right,
Woo! They took their pound and flesh. They
right,
they had some very nice digital income coming in off that account, and I
right.
was fine with it because nobody else
Absolutely.
was going to take that deal.
Right.
Not a chance.
You're gonna get 80% or you're gonna get nothing. So you take your 80% and you're very happy with it. Right.
Very happy. Yeah,
So
so it's
yeah,
it, it is it's like penny wise, pound foolish. I think ISOs want to grab as much as they can. They want 100% over this, and then it's like they want to fight for these merchants. And it's like I'm making the same clicks on a restaurant than I am on a free trial nutraceutical.
right.
Why do I care?
Right. Exactly. Why? Yeah, it
Give me
shouldn't be that
some
way.
reason that I should care about your Nutra account that you're making 500 basis points on, and
Right.
I'm making the same as Joe's coffee shop.
Right, exactly. Yep. And then it's
It's
just the wrong economic model. And I think it's I like Esquire a bank a lot, by the way. And
oh, I,
I've
I
seen
love
the
them.
same thing. I think they're the best of, what's the best of the worst, meaning sponsor banks in general. It's just
It's a good way of putting
it's a
it.
really bad model. I don't blame them. It's just the whole
No,
concept is it's a bad model, especially for medium to high risk portfolios.
yeah,
But I think Esquire is
yeah.
one of the best of that group of sponsor banks, but just sponsor banks in general are not structured correctly, in my opinion. But
I agree with you. I agree with you.
yeah,
And it's funny because I've looked at buying a bank and getting my acquiring license and
right,
getting into
right,
the acquiring game. And
right,
then I realized I actually like hanging out with my kids and I actually like having free time.
right,
I
exactly.
don't want to work 100 hours a week and have
Right,
compliance meetings every third, you know what I mean? Like,
right, right.
but I was like, acquiring banks don't understand. They're giving
Yeah,
away the same pricing, whether it's low, medium, high, nothing. Now,
right.
some of them are starting to put in like 20 bips here, 30 bips
Yes,
for
yes.
high
We've seen
risk
that more.
bin fee. And
Right.
that's good,
Yeah,
but again, it's like so they're kind of getting hip to it, but
yeah,
yeah, no, I
yeah.
fully agree with you.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so Dylan, for those who might just want to learn more about what you're doing, connect with you in some
Yeah.
way from the industry, where would you send them to learn more?
They can go to my website. Do you want me to put it in the chat or
Oh, just say it. You can just tell
okay,
us,
it's
and then
it's
I'll.
it's www.intpaysol.com. So it's the first three letters of International Payment Solutions.
Love it.
Um, if you want to email me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you, answer questions, connect with you guys. It's Dylan Dylan dot Gaines Gaines at intpaysol.com. And I'd love to chat more with you, with anybody
Awesome.
else out there listening.
Dylan, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I love talking to
Dude,
other
man, this was
other
really
other
fun.
payments experts, and it's a lot of fun. So this is
It
great, man. I
is
really appreciate your
great.
time, and just thank you for sharing your insights with the audience today. I really appreciate it.
Dan, no problem, man. Thank you.
Well, I'm here again with superstar salesman Rich Norton. And Rich, I always tell people that you are the top salesperson in the merchant services industry today. I don't, I think I've met just about everybody that sells payment processing. I don't know anybody that sells more accounts. And I thought maybe before we dive into this, we're giving all these sales tips. Would you mind sharing any kind of high level stats of kind of what does a top performer look like, and kind of what are your levels of performance that would justify people want to listen to your advice on how to do this?
Absolutely. But it's amazing how fast the time goes by. As I approach going into 2025, this will be my 25th year in
Wow.
this industry. I've been in direct sales since I was 18 years old. I sold encyclopedias door to door, not for a month or a summer. I did that for like almost 19 years. I held on like a thread, as that business was dying. And
Right.
thankfully, somebody introduced me into this business in early 2000. So here we are 25 years later. I thank God for the opportunity. It was a second chance opportunity coming into merchant services. And I said, I'm going to take complete advantage of it. I've always been the top performer. I was averaging 400 merchants a year for many, many years. There was one guy that actually really pushed me and really challenged me, and I wrote 500 one year. And then there was another guy that came in, and he really said he's going to beat me. And Brian Camstra challenged me. He said he may beat you. I ended up writing 601 that one year, which was crazy. I won't do that again because it's completely out of balance. But even to this day, I still write 300 merchants per year. Not because I need to. I mean, to me, that's the most challenging part of what I do. I love it. I love getting up in the morning. I love going out every day, writing merchants. And my passion is to teach people how to reach their maximum potential. And that's what I say about our team is that everything that we teach is exactly what we do. As you always talk about, you see me in my office, my car,
Right.
I drive out in the field and I'm writing merchants today as we're talking, and I'll write another one as soon as we're done. And I love that, and I love coming home. To me, that's the best challenge. But I really do have a passion to teach people how to be incredibly successful in this business. And I know what we do and what we teach really does work.
I love it. Well, Rich, today I wanted to see if you could share a few tips with us about listening. So last year we talked about being likable, then we talked about building trust. And part of building trust, what you alluded to last week was we ask questions and then we're listening. What do you want to give us some quick tips on how to become more effective listeners and how that can impact our performance?
I always say this, that the best salespeople are the best listeners. I love it when people will call me up and say, hey, I want to get into sales and I know I can be great at it because I have the gift of gab and I can sell ice
Mhm.
to an Eskimo. And automatically I want to tell them, nah, that's not the right way,
Right.
because it's really the opposite. And
Yeah.
I find it's amazing that I find the people that really are the most inward seem to be the most successful because they have learned the art of listening. So if you're taking notes, you should write that down. The best salespeople are the best listeners. So when you walk into a business, build a rapport and start asking questions. And then what you're going to find out is what are their pain points. And as you're asking the questions, and I know when you're new and you're first starting out, you're thinking about my pitch, what do I say next? And you're not even listening to them. So
Right.
make sure when you're asking them questions that you're listening to what they're saying, but you're really genuinely interested in what they're talking about. And this is that whole part of getting them to like you. Because
Mm.
if you listen to them and you compliment them, because that's a big part of human behavior, people love to be recognized. When you
Yeah.
walk into a business and you see that they got all their trophies from when they were in high school and they were on the all-star wrestling team, you just go in there and say, wow, did you win all these? First place, but man, tell me about that. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to start talking about that because
Mhm.
people like to talk about themselves. And as they're talking about themselves, give them compliments. But when you're asking questions when it comes to the sales process, really listen intently. And then what's going to happen? You're going to find out what is going to be the best solution for this particular merchant right now. And I know a lot of representatives, I've talked to a bunch that have come from different companies, and they're like, cash discount, 4%, $45 a month. That's all I'm selling because I know I make the most amount of money with that. That's fine, but you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities because if the business says, I'm not going to charge my customer at all, I don't think that's a right process. What are you going to say? You're going to try to convince them and say, what are you, some kind of idiot? It doesn't work that way. But if you say, you know what, I got to put my hat off to you because what you're telling me is that you really care about your customers. And because of that, your customers are going to keep coming back. So hats off to you. Great job. What you're looking for is a solution, to correct me if I'm wrong, a solution that's going to benefit your business. Not only that, but it's going to cut some cost as well. Am I correct in saying that? Yes, I am. And that's the magic word is getting them to say yes. And you see that I'm developing a rapport, but it all starts with asking questions and listening to what their responses are.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I think too, when you, as you mentioned, Rich, when you're listening intently and sincerely, you're going to get that direction that you need to go with the pitch. And even if the conversation is going in a direction that you don't like, for instance, maybe you do want to sell, a dual pricing or some kind of program, and they initially have some resistance, but the way that they voice that, if you go right in, as you said, to like, well, that's stupid. What's wrong with you? Well, that's never
Right.
going to work. You're trying to
No.
win the argument and lose the sale. But if you can use like a buffer statement there and kind of what you said, and you might say, well, I want to push it a little harder. Okay, that's fine, but still use the statement. So you go in and say, wow, I got to take my hat off to you. The way you're in tune with your customers' needs is fantastic. Let me ask you a question. When you do a regular price increase, I'm sure you've done one this year, right? And they say yes. Okay. When you did that price increase, did you get any negative feedback from your customers or did they accept that? Okay. Well, they accepted it. Great. Well, if there was a way that we could put a program together to offset some of the cost of processing for you, but really that same concept of just a very small price increase, would that be something you'd like to discuss? So, right, we
Love it.
can we can go in these other directions maybe, and then they might say, "No, I'm just not interested in doing that." And then you say, well, this is amazing. You are so committed to your customer experience. I love it. So, and then you go into the line you just said. So I think, even if you want to push a little bit by listening, you're able to give them that compliment, that buffer statement that allows you to continue pushing a little bit, right, without losing the sale.
Exactly. Because I teach everybody you can give one objection and overcome that objection. And if they still respond, like you said, that no way, I am not charging my customer
Right.
at all. then you go on and move on to the next one. So, and that all comes with listening, because a lot of it has, it may be just in the way that they say it. They might say, James, I just don't know about charging or
Right.
adding a fee at all. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the businesses I've been helping out, they told me exactly the same thing. And once we were able to get them set up on this program, which I'll explain to you in a minute, they absolutely love it. In fact, they're calling us back, thanking us for putting them on the program. I had a merchant that called me up. And they said, you have basically saved our business by having us on this program right here.
Yeah, I
So,
love it. Yeah. So
yes.
again, getting into that, I think just listening so crucial. And then allowing what you hear from the merchant to direct that conversation. It's a very elite level skill. I feel like, Rich. I feel like there
Yes.
are a lot of agents who they're struggling and they don't know why. And it's because they're not listening. And I get it. You're like you mentioned earlier, it's like you're thinking about what you're going to say. And we're going to talk about that actually in the next video. So we'll leave that for the next topic. So before we let you go, though, Rich, give us some contact info real quick. You've been so generous to share that with those who want to reach out to you. So give us that if you would.
It's my pleasure. As you were bringing that up, if you don't mind me sharing, I remember when my daughter was in high school, and they were talking about meeting friends and so forth, and they
Yeah.
got invited to a party, her and one of her friends. And I said, if you want to be the most popular person at the party, I have an assignment for you. This is what I want you to do. And most people think they have to go out and talk about themselves and promote themselves. I said, don't do that at all. All you're going to do is meet as many people as you possibly can, ask them a lot of questions, sincerely be happy with their responses, give them some good recognition, spend a couple minutes with them, move on to the next one, and do that all night long. And I promise you, you'll be the most popular person at the party. And I
Yeah.
think if people practice that just in life in general,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the difference. Do that in our business. So yes, little tidbit for you there.
Love it.
So yeah, reach out to me at 904-434-4635, or you can email payrockrichnorton@gmail.com.
Love it. Thanks, Rich.
So Visa, it's going whole hog into the faster payments arena. The card giant is enhancing its P2P payment service, promising that money sent to U.S. bank accounts that are linked to eligible debit cards can be made in a minute or less beginning in April 2025.
Wow.
That's pretty slick.
And this is Visa Direct.
Yes, Visa Direct.
Okay. All right. Got it.
So Visa Direct isn't new, of course. It's been around
Right.
since like 2011, 2012, something like that. But mostly it supports P2P payments, of course. Now, MasterCard, its competitor, has what is called MasterCard Send, which is a pretty close to direct real-time P2P service. But
Right.
MasterCard also owns VocaLink, which is the technology backbone of RTP, the real-time network that's operated by the clearinghouse.
Okay.
And in recent years, it's announced a slew of real-time payment solutions for businesses and consumers, including a B2B payments, consumer refunds, and digital wallet integration that enable fast payouts to apps like PayPal and Venmo.
Right.
So Visa, you might say, is kind of trying to play catch up. It says it now has the ability to reach 99% of bank accounts in the U.S. and over 11 billion endpoints, including cards, bank accounts, and digital wallets. Common use cases involve splitting bills with friends, moving money between accounts, and receiving insurance claims payouts, or even what do they call it? Earned wage income
Right.
for
Right.
workers.
Sure.
I was explaining this to a friend. She said, "What are you writing about?" I said, "Oh, this new service about Visa Direct that are going to make it a lot easier when we split the tab at the restaurant." Because
Right.
it's
Right.
always a pain in the butt if everybody throws in their cards, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this way, one person pays it, and the rest of us, reimburse them.
Hmm.
In addition to enhancing the cardholder experience, the update opens up new avenues for businesses and governments to enhance operational efficiencies,
Right.
deliver better customer experiences, and foster trust among customers. No longer do you have to worry about, quote, the check being in the mail, so to speak.
Right. Right.
Whether it's dispersing government benefits, processing healthcare payments, or handling tips in service industries, the improved speed and reliability of money movement using products like Visa Direct empowers businesses and governments to inch even closer to real-time payments.
Hmm.
I have a quote here that I found that I thought was interesting from Reed Luthinen, who's executive director and CEO of the U.S. Faster Payments Council, which helped the Fed put together FedNow and advises RTP and so forth.
Right.
He said faster payments are crucial for the modern economy, and this move by Visa is a significant step forward. Upgrading the U.S. payment system is essential for secure, near immediate funds availability. The
Yeah.
question, the operative word there, of course, being near immediate.
Right.
To have absolute immediate funds availability opens up a whole can of worms with respect to chargebacks and thefts and so forth.
Right. Sure.
But if we could get, I mean, when you consider, it used to be like for Zelle, okay, I would send a friend or even Venmo, I'd send a friend a Venmo amount of money, say $100, and they'd get the $100 immediately. But I don't have to pay the $100, especially if I send it on Friday. I don't have to pay my $100 to Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
This way with the immediate, it makes for a lot cleaner bookkeeping for the banks as well as for the individual sending the money.
Right. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of innovation around this. I haven't really dug into it enough to understand kind of the cost structure of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
To see if it's going to be something that would work for a B2B. But things like B2B where the cost of time is so high and
So high,
waiting for
it would
money that
be, yeah.
I think there's
I
gonna be a lot of innovation around that.
I one time I paid my niece $100. She was like 17, 18. I
Hmm.
would pay her for helping me around the house. And I give her $100 and I'm driving her home and she's already online switching the money over to her bank account. I'm like, honey, how much does that cost you? And she says, oh, about 57 cents. I'm like,
Yeah.
shoot, okay, yeah, okay, I don't mind you
Right.
you
Right.
using that for Venmo instead of me giving you the cash.
Right.
So obviously they make it really cheap for consumers. I'm sure they can make it cheaper than say an ACH or a check transaction would be for B2B.
Right. Right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I actually doubt that it would get down to the ACH level.
Maybe not
Just
to the ACH level. You're right.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Just because, but again, ACH is such a bad medium for this anyway. Because
Yeah.
the big problem with ACH for B2B, in my opinion, is the approval process.
Yes.
You can be days before you even realize that there was insufficient funds, and then you have a big mess on your hands. With the Visa Direct, at least you're going to know right away
Right.
that it's a good transaction.
And with ACH, part of that lag is the fact that it's so cheap. I mean,
Right.
bucket a quarter, something like that.
Oh, I mean, a lot of times these B2B, deals, they'll pay 25 cents a transaction for
Yeah,
ACH, and then the ACH is like $10,000 or something.
right.
So yeah, it's really, really inexpensive. But again, if ACH was going to become the medium of choice for B2B, it would have already happened. It's been around forever,
And
and
that's
it
why it was
hasn't happened.
originally created. I mean, it was originally
Right.
created for B2B, and instead they
Right.
started, in the late 60s, and they said, okay, we can't do B2B, let's do B2C.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's why we have so much B2C
Yeah.
transaction. But it'll be really interesting to see how this evolves. I
Yeah.
think we're going to see a lot more P2P, uh, close to real time
Yeah.
networks in the future.
Yeah. I agree. Good stuff, Patty. Thank you very much.
Sure thing, man.